Hello, welcome everybody to today's webinar. Today's webinar will be on NX and Checkmate. My name is Brian Fisher. I'll be your host. I am an NX application engineer out of Cincinnati, Ohio with Prolim, partners of Siemens. This webinar will be recorded and will be posted later on our YouTube channel. If you have not done so already, please go to Prolim's YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Now let's go ahead and look at a quick bio of myself. So here you can see I have over 20 years experience with NX and Teamcenter, 15 years of experience as a designer in the aircraft industry, and 5+ years as a designer in the medical industry. Additionally, you can see a little bit of my education there. The agenda today, we will be getting into Checkmate. We'll get into what Checkmate is, how to utilize Checkmate, how to document some stuff. As you can see, if you don't know, Checkmate is a collection of quality assurances and tests that allow you to go in and check parts on an assembly, drawings. It allows you to go in and make sure that your designers, checkers, and so are all hitting the required checklist that you may have in place. Additionally, you can later on, if you have an author and Checkmate license, create your own Checkmate tests. Jump in NX. For today's presentation, I will have an assembly here. This assembly has some components, also some drawings. I'm going to go through some common checks that are used within Checkmate. To get to Checkmate, you can be in application drafting or application modeling. You must have a Mach 2 or higher. And if you want to make any of your customized checks, you have to have an authorization license. However, there are several different checks within NX. And we're going to go through some of the common ones here. So here I have myself an assembly, and I also have myself a drawing. And within the resource tab over here on the left-hand side, when we click on that, you can see our HD 3D tools. We have an area called Checkmate. If I double-click on that, you can see here it brings up our Checkmate. The first thing we see here is our results. The view style here, this is nothing more than a filter, how you like to see your information. If we come down here, much like any other thing in the resource tab, if you right click, you can go in and add columns. You can export to a spreadsheet, and you can export to a browser. Additionally, down here, if you ran tests in the past, you can save them tests within the part. I will show you how to do that when we go to run our first test here. If I look at this, I can also run the recently run tests. Down here, you can see our different settings. These will come into play when we run our test, and you will see a lot of this information up in this white area here. So here, I'm going to come in and set up a test. In this case, I am in a master model drawing. We'll wait for it to come up here. It's scanning for the profiles. The first thing we notice here in the setup test, we do have a help area. If we hit that help area will bring us in to the Siemens Checkmate help page. Within that particular page, you can see you can getting started. If you want to know some Checkmate terminology, you have your terminology here. If you actually have to go in and create customized Checkmate, you have an area for that also. For today, we will not be customizing anything, but we will be going through and running some checks. So here I am in this assembly, in the assembly drawing. You can see here I can do current part, all loaded parts, or I can even point to a directory. We'll do a few of them as we go through this, but for this particular one right now, I'm just going to go ahead and run it through this drawing. Next, if we look at our tests here, this is the area that we have a lot of choices to go in and choose our test. For example, we can come in there and do a spell check on the annotation. If I come down, we also have an area for model and sheet metal, and we have one for drafting. So if you look at drafting here, for example, I can check and see if it's all drafting's up to date. We can check and see if we have any empty sheets. Viewed and printed edit. There's a lot of information within here that allows you to go in and quickly select this and be able to run these tests without having to customize your own tests. Next, we'll look up at our options up here. These options here, we can stop on an error, stop on a warning. We can save it to our part if it passes, or always save. If you go ahead and you select any of these, you can see you get yourself additional tabs that you can come in and select. For example, here we can generate a check flag that lets us know that that has been ran and passed. For this particular one, I'm not going to save this. However, you could. Additionally, you could come in there and generate a log file. You could do it per part or per session. This area here would take you into the area where that particular log file would be saved. Your display results, you can always display them. Display them if not passing, or do not display. I'm going to go ahead and run these tests that we had here at this time. At this time, I could come in and delete any of these and remove them from that particular check. But for this particular reason, I'm not. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to execute my checkmate. Down here in the bottom, you will see that it's telling us the checker is complete with 3 errors. I'm going to close this. Now you notice I get little tabs. These little tabs will allow me to know where these particular areas have failed. As you can see here, this shows failed. Down here, first on filter level, I can change this to be part, test, or object, depending on how you like to look at this and depending on if you ran multiple checks on multiple parts or an individual part. In this case, we just ran it on this drawing. So let's go ahead and expand this a little bit, and let's take a look at some of this information. The first thing we know is spell check on annotation. It tells me that my part list has some misspelling. Maybe in this case, if we right click, we can show info view, or we can focus on the tag. Let's say focus on the tag. Notice it comes in there. Maybe these are the names I want. So in this case, I am fine with this, and I can come in there and go on to the next one. My next one here, if I right click, notice I got show info tag, focus on tag, collapse, show object display status, and so on. Let's go ahead and look at a few of these options. So info view. Once I do that, it will bring up another window and let me come in and look at what possibly is misspelled. In this case, it is paint. You can see here it gives you a description of what this particular check does, and it gives you additional information on the test parameters. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this, and I'm going to go and fix this particular one. Notice it says no, it's not paint, so let's go ahead and fix that. Now we have that one fixed. Let's go ahead and look at our next particular area that may have an issue. Check drafting up to date. Notice it tells me right away that my trimetric view is not up to date. In this particular case, I'm going to come over and update views. And now I have that particular one done. And if I come down to my next one, checked empty sheets, it's telling me at this time that sheet 2 is empty. I can come in, delete that sheet, or add information to it depending on what my needs are. In this case, I'm going to come over and I'm going to delete that sheet. And then we'll go ahead and we'll rerun our particular checks. Because I've already ran checks in here, I don't have to go back and set it up again. I can come in here and just say most recently ran. I'm going to execute that. Once I execute it, it's going to go through, and you'll notice that I get green arrows here. And in this case, I do have still one left, but in this case, I have no issues with it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this particular result. And now I have myself a drawing that has been ran through Checkmate. Let's go ahead and fit this view. And after we're done with this, we're going to go ahead and open up one of these components and run that component also. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and run our component. But before we do that, let's just kind of briefly go over what we went over here. So as you can see here, this is the Checkmate documentation area of NX. As I spoke of, we went in there and I showed you how you can get started. Showed you how additionally, there is information in here if you need to go ahead and authorize your own Checkmate material. And if we look here, I showed you how over in the Resource tab in your HD 3D tools where Checkmate is located and how to run it. Additionally, we went in and we looked at the different areas within the Checkmate tool here. We went in and looked how we could set up our test, how we could do current part, all loaded parts, all parts and directory. Additionally, we went in and looked at a few of the tests in the categories there within Checkmate. And I also went in and showed you how the different run options can be used within Checkmate. So we're going to go ahead though and do another component in this case, and then we'll go ahead and look at some other features within Checkmate. So jumping back into NX, let's go ahead and look at an assembly. This is the assembly that we just looked at the drawing, but in this case we are in the component of the assembly, not the drawing. We're going to go back in here again and look at our Checkmate tools. This time I'm going to notice if I want to deactivate it, I would have to deactivate it up here. Then I can come back down and hit my Checkmate. And I'm going to go ahead and expand this a little bit. And in this particular one, if I said most run, it would go and do what was done in that drawing because I'd never closed out of NX and came back in. However, we want to set up a different test for the assembly. So let's go back over into our setup test. And within my test, I'm going to say current part. And I'm going to go ahead and delete these particular ones because that's not what I want to run this time. I want to go in and look at some of my assembly options here and my modeling options. So let's go in. We have modeling here. Notice we have features, sketch, part family, examine geometry. We have assemblies. Within our assembly, for example, maybe we want to look and see if the clearance analysis has been ran. And maybe we want to check and see if what our sets for mass properties is. So these are, a few that are common within NX that a lot of people may use if you're going in and looking at an assembly. In this particular one now, maybe I do want to save this one, and maybe I do want to put, a log file. So we're going to generate a log file. I'm going to go in and tell this log file where to go, and I'm going to OK that. And now I come in and I run this execution, and once again, you're going to see over here on the left-hand side, we did not pass these particular one. Notice I can go test, part, or object again. In this case, I'm just going to say test. Clearance analysis. So the clearance analysis had not been ran. If I come in and I say show info, it's going to come in here once again and give me the information such as when the test was ran, who the test was ran by, and then it also tells me why it failed. This is an assembly part, but no clearance analysis has been ran. If we look at the next one here, check reference sets for mass properties. If we come in here again, invalid reference set is not among the user specified. Let me extend that a little bit so we can read a little bit more. Entire part. And we come in and it tells me more information on this. So in this case, a valid reference set of mass property is empty. That tells me there's a particular component that does not have mass property to it. So these are common, that individuals may want to run when you're going in and you're finalizing the design, or if you're just checking up on an individual and seeing how far they are within their design. So for this one, let's go ahead and run our clearance analysis. So under assemblies, we have an area that says perform analysis, clearance browser, and so on. Let's do a new set. And I'm going to go ahead and run it. And down here, you can see I have now myself a clearance analysis is ran. And if we have a touching, we can come in there and if we can come in there and say reanalyze, study interference. So we come in and I can come in there and quickly go in and determine that this interference is there. From there, I can come in there and say set resolve, cell relevant, or set pending. In this case, we were just really concerned that somebody went in and ran the analysis. So now that we know they ran the analysis, let's go ahead and run my check one more time. And you'll see here, we get our green check mark. And if we come over to the side here, it tells us it's passed and we can move on. Now, we would have to go in and look at our mass properties and go in and find that component and be able to go in and make that change, put a mass property to it, rerun this, and now we have a Checkmate that's been cleaned up and that we can go in and look at. So that's just a couple examples of how we can come in and use Checkmate to go and double check our designs, make sure we're hitting all of our marks that we need to do, and hitting all of our company requirements. Now, additionally, we do have some more tools in the HD 3D tools. So, for example, in here, let's say we wanted to come in and we wanted to actually have this information available for other individuals. If you're in Team Center, you have that ability to actually email each other. So, for example, here, if I right-click, notice there's another area called Create Issue. And this part has been saved, so let's go ahead and save it. And now, it's just telling me basically right now, I don't have a tracking created. So let's go ahead and create a issue briefcase here. Before I do that, let me go ahead and get out of this and deactivate it and show you where that is if you wanted to just go straight to that. That would be in here where we can go ahead and manage our issues. So we can create a briefcase. Once I have my briefcase in there, I can save the issue briefcase, create new issue, config view, and so on. If I came in and say create new issues, it's going to come up here and give me information. This information I can fill out. I can tell them what the issue is. Mass. I can come in there and put the additional comments. Please check. You know, stuff as that. Please check. I can come in here and tell what category it is. Manufacturability, clearance, styling, and so on. I can come in there and tell them it's a detailed design, assembly, and mock-up, manufacture, and so on. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and say OK in this one. And now I have myself an incident report. This incident report, I'm going to go ahead and hit this and get out of it and discharge the changes. But that is a quick way that we could go in and create ourselves an incident report. Now, if we wanted more information on the incident report and issue management, we do have an area for help here. In this particular one, this would go in and give you information on how to track the issues, understand the issue process. So, for example, here, this would give you the workflow that you would need to go in and create this incident. Additionally, you can come in there and review issues. You can be out, well, if you're in Team Center, you don't have to be in NX to actually go in and look at the incident report. An individual come behind you, they could come in, search this part within Team Center, and they could quickly go in there and see what those particular issues are and put the correct individual on those issues. Okay, we're going to do one more thing and then we're going to wrap this webinar up. So within our HD 3D tools, we do have some additional tools in there. And I'm going to go ahead and just show the one here on visual report. And so back in NX here, we're back in our carrier assembly. And we have a visual reporting. This is out of the box. Again, these are several different checks that I can come in there and choose. In this case, I'm going to go and look at my Checkmate results. And down here, I can execute my report. Once I go in here and run my report, notice this is a report style with color objects, so it lets me know right away that all these parts have been ran and that we can move on. These Checkmate results can be checked again just by going to the individual parts, or you can generate a report. So these are the tools that we're able to use that are straight out of the box, and we're able to come in and quickly go behind and check on our designers and make sure that we have hit all our company standards. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending. We're going to open this up for Q&A now. Once again, there's my email address, and please go in and subscribe and like to our YouTube channel, and you can get a lot of the webinars and additional videos that we put out there. At this time, I'm going to open it up and see if anybody has any questions or comments. Thank you again.